What am I supposed to say?
Whatever you want. Just let it all out. Pretend there's nobody's listening. It's just the two of us.
First off, well, look, probably not a whole lot of people watch this. Anybody that found out Caitlin Clark was not going to be part of it, was not going to play, was going to be on the sidelines, whatever like that. You never have seen probably an all-star game go from hero to zero that fast in your life. But they're wearing these shirts. I would argue most people have no idea what they mean. First of all, they're making a statement about pay us what you owe us. I understand you're in the midst of collective bargaining, so you're trying to get as much as you possibly can, and I really don't begrudge you for that. But you got to read the room, and by the room I mean the country. If the WNBA ceased to exist tonight, the marketplace would not shift one iota. It wouldn't even recognize it. It wouldn't even notice. Like, literally.
With that being said, is it delusion? I guess we'll see. Welcome to Center Ground, your home for unfiltered discussion, where we tackle today's most talked about topics, break down current events, and give our take on the internet's latest foolishness. Tune in and let's find some common ground. Let's get this party started. The WNBA finds itself in a unique position since they are in the process of negotiating for higher salaries. I mentioned in my last video how it makes sense, to a degree, they are asking for what they're asking for. Personally, I believe more people should put forth an effort into asking for raises at their jobs, particularly if they're productive within their field of work. I often believe fear stops many of us, so we tend to rely on excuses like racism, sexism, ageism, and we do it to make ourselves feel good about our own inadequacies. Nevertheless, I read a lot of articles, posts, and comments in the last few days, and a word has repeatedly come up: delusion. Delusion is defined as characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite incontrovertible, meaning undeniable, evidence to the contrary, typically as a symptom of a medical condition. So the question of the day in respect to what the WNBA is requesting, is it delusion? Is it delusional to think that you should get paid more when you work for a company that isn't doing so well? That seems to be the question that is floating around everyone's thought process. I like removing scapegoats or scapegoat concepts like race, gender, and sexuality in these arguments because most of the time, those aren't really the root of the argument. It's just the scapegoat we use to prove our point. Do they apply? Absolutely. Some people will judge you because of your skin color. Some people will judge you because of your accent, your education level, your sexuality, your gender. We've all seen it. It happens. So to pretend that it doesn't happen, you're just a liar.
No trust, liar.
Like, I don't know why people always lying, but they do. But my point is, although it happens, it's usually not the root of the conversation. The root of the conversation is the WNBA makes no money. Will they make money in the future? Possibly, but for right now, they don't make money. So how can you pay from a pot that's empty? How can I pour water out of a jug? Or rather, how can I feed you when there's nothing here? Oof, man, I tell you, that gave me shivers considering the fact that I grew up poor. I remember there were times where you would open the refrigerator door only to look at nothing, sigh, and then come back in 30 minutes hoping and praying that there would be food in the refrigerator. But that's the crux of the argument. Now, I've been listening more and more. And you know, some folks on both sides make really good points. Although the league is quote unquote losing money, these investors are still making some type of money. This is what Jamil Hill was saying. And I kind of agree. I do believe that money is typically hidden somewhere in business, whether it be in operational cost or some other crap that us normal people don't pay attention to. However, you have to understand, when businesses operate at a deficit, most of the investors might get a little bit of their money back. Probably not all of it. Or they might do something called breaking even. Now, as an investor, you don't want to break even. Because breaking even, it usually means that you're taking risk for no apparent reason and you're losing money because you could have put your money in a useful vehicle rather than a useless liability. If there are any investors out there, please correct me if I'm wrong. So I'll put it this way. You're at a job and you didn't get a raise this year. First of all, you're mad, right? Obviously. Second of all, guess what, my friend? You lost money because every year your money becomes weaker. Your dollar meant more 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I remember when I was young and my mother used to give me $1. First of all, I was the richest kid on the block. You couldn't tell me nothing. I used to be able to buy a whole newspaper. I mean, for the comics, of course, especially the Boondocks, right? But if I didn't feel like reading, or if I was just a little hungry or thirsty, you know, I was able to buy 4 bags of chips for $1. Or depending on the type of juice I got, I was able to get 4 different juices. That dollar meant more then than it does now. Like, I haven't really bought these items lately, so I don't really know how much they cost anymore. But I know for a fact that the dollar doesn't get you as much as it used to. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm not rich or anything. I stopped eating a lot of these things and drinking a lot of these things because they're just downright not healthy. They're cheap. And I was poor, so I bought it. But y'all got to make sure y'all drinking water and taking care of yourselves and eating clean because some of this food is literally harming us. My fault, y'all. I just went into dad mode for no reason. But you see, that's what happens when you got kids. I brought it up because the money the players make today will be weaker next year and so on. So I completely understand them wanting more money. Hell, I said it before. If I was in their position, I would have had my own shirt. They would have probably had to give me a 2XL, but I would have been right with them. Like, hey, y'all give me that money too. But here's the unique thing about the WNBA. Financially, the WNBA should not exist. Key word in that is financially. Now, you could make the argument that the NBA wasn't profitable and other male leagues weren't profitable for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You can definitely make that argument. But you also have to remember, at best, those at the minimum were about 40 years ago. That's 4 decades ago. So that's a whole entirely different generation. And in some cases, 2 generations, because people keep having babies younger and younger. But that's a whole different video. I understand the argument that other leagues had time to prosper and time to struggle. But what people like Jamil Hill constantly and conveniently forget is Not only were other leagues able to do this in a time that no longer exists, they were often self-sustained and worked in an unforgiving time with extremely limited exposure. Meaning, the owners of the team made their investment for better or for worse. The NBA struggled financially and even lost teams that couldn't keep up. Not to mention, many of the players had day jobs and they didn't complain much about their pay because they saw it as a privilege rather than an entitlement. Speaking on entitlement, check out my other video, link in the description. But what people are saying now is, in a time of equality, you don't get to struggle for 20, 30 years financially while being propped up by other people and then turn around and demand money from those same people. It's typically only entitled people who behave like this. In stark contrast, the NBA went through a similar struggle, but they didn't behave like this. Which might be why the general public is starting to turn on the WNBA players. When the men were in their position, instead of complaining, they worked together to make the game itself better and more entertaining. These are two things the WNBA literally rejects because they feel that things are good just the way that they are. And whenever you attempt to make a change to it, they not only get angry at you, but they call you sexist. So the question is, should they get more of the revenue? Probably, but it depends on who you ask. If you ask me, the more I think about it, yes, they should get a bump. They should get a raise. If the company makes more money than it made last year, yeah, you should pay me because it's my work that got you that raise. Got you that, progress. Right? But here's the thing about business and businesses. Businesses love taking money out of the pockets of the employees and keeping it to themselves and throwing it at investors. But what people don't understand is why they do that. Everyone hates rich folk, but sometimes people don't understand why rich folks get their food first. Now, although it's important to have employees, because without employees, obviously, you can't do the job without the employees. They are literally the backbone of any organization or company. Employees are pivotal. However, without investors, you won't have a company. And then, of course, if you don't have a company, you won't have employees. It's pretty much the chicken or the egg argument. Who comes first? Right? I would love for people to think using perspectives they don't agree with. Indulge me for a second and think of what would happen if investors don't make money in a company. Yep, you guessed it. Investors start to back out. One of the worst things you could do as a CEO or senior leader of a company is be that guy, that girl who lost investors. That's one of the worst things you can do. Because if you lose too many of them, first of all, when they start dropping like flies. Because they see what one is doing, and essentially it's monkey see, monkey do. If I see Jeff dropping out with his $100 million gift or investment to our cause, you're going to start seeing the $1 million guy say, hey, why did Jeff back out? And it's going to start causing some doubt. And once it creates doubt, more and more of them are going to drop out. So here's what I think is going to happen with the WNBA if they're not very, very careful. They're going to start losing investors. An investor is going to say, listen, I put my money into this league because I had hopes and dreams that eventually it would turn a profit. Because this is what some of them do. They will buy a dying company, a dying business at a discount in hopes that they can turn it around. Because if it turns around, good Lord, that can be so lucrative. Just imagine a female league doing the numbers of the NBA. Personally, I don't see it happening because I think people will grow tired of clowning them. I think they get a lot of attention with people making content like this on them. People just joking about how delusional or how entitled they are. Or even when they miss shots and their lowlights, as people call it. People will get tired of it after a while. I think people are going to get tired of talking about them. I think people are going to get tired of indulging them. And eventually the hype of their biggest players are going to start to die out. Not to mention, there is absolutely nothing stopping these ladies from going to other leagues where it might be more beneficial for them. So, it is my honest belief that the shirts were bold. It shows teamwork, community, and unity. But I think it's a misstep. I think they thought their display of defiance would hit the same as the I Can't Breathe shirts or the Kaepernick kneeling, and it just didn't. From the looks of it, it seems like it turned more of the public against them. And they may have tarnished the relationship with league officials and officers working on the collective bargaining. But I'll say this. I understand the risk. And sometimes if you're willing to take the risk, especially as a collective, you better make sure that y'all are on a united front. Because if you fail, you have to own it. And you have to own it as a group. And you best believe someone is going to start pointing fingers. But if you succeed, you guys can look at each other and say, man. Wait, I don't mean man. I mean, girl, look at what we did. So, is it delusional for them to demand a raise? Of course it is. But you need to be a bit delulu to get what you want at times. I mean, listen, if it works, it's not stupid, right? In time, we'll see if what they did was truly effective. I'll close by saying this. Negotiation truly is a delicate dance between two or more parties. One party wants one thing, the other party wants another. Sometimes those things are polar opposites, so you go back and forth, just like tennis. But here's where it gets tricky. And I've been in many negotiations in my life. You win some and you lose some. But most of the time, you'll lose if you start undercutting, undermining, and stepping on toes by doing things like using public displays of manipulation, bullying, or coercion. So best believe, WNBA players, although I admire you standing up for what you want, because a lot of women don't do it and need to do it more, I must also admonish you. because you need to understand the investors, the league, and everybody else in between. If they feel slighted by your behavior, they will step back on you just like you did to them. And you have to remember, right now, not only is the leverage with the front office and the investors, but they also wear heavier shoes and carry heavier wallets. And if you're not careful, they may leverage them to crush your league. And if they choose to do that, then everyone loses. Thanks for listening to the Center Ground Podcast. We'll be back soon with some more great content. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. We are a new channel, and growth is essentially our main objective. So send us an email at centerground.pod@gmail.com with any ideas or clips you would like for us to review. This was definitely fun, and I'd say let's do it again. But before you go, always remember, greatness lives somewhere within you. Just make sure you're taking the time to find the key to unlock that greatness. Until we meet again, I'll see you soon.